626. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now.
Hello, everybody. Friday, March 6th. Tim Powers here for you. Been an interesting week with lots of developments from the Beta Nord discovery to Brad Gougeau making it into the Brier playoffs, and he's going to play this afternoon, and decorum in the House of Assembly. A lot to talk about. Let's start with the Brier playoffs, first of all, because I like starting with the good news. So the Battle of the Brads yesterday, I had a chance to watch it, and it was excellent. It really was good. You can see why both of these gentlemen are arguably the GOATs, greatest of all time, of curling. Masterful. The thing I like as a non-regular curling viewer is the strategy at the end. How are you going to, where are you going to put a rock? What are you going to take out? What are you going to leave in? Why do you want the hammer here? Do you want it there? And there was some masterful play, as I could interpret it, in the last half of the game, the last 5 ends of the game while I was watching it. And, God, the crowd was right into it. It was great. And it was so wonderful when Brad Gougeau won, just to see the reaction of the crowd. Just so enthusiastic, so supportive. And the respect that obviously exists between Brad Jacobs and Brad Gougeau is immense. I was watching the TSN broadcast. Excuse me for a second. I was watching the TSN broadcast, and credit to TSN, who do a wonderful job telling the story of the Brier, and Vic Rauter is incredible. They and Joanne Courtney, they did a great video on Brad Gougeau and how well he's respected among his peers and what he means. And if you haven't seen it, have a look at it. It's really quite meaningful and hits you in the heartstrings, because you see this guy, what Brad Gougeau is dedicated to the sport of curling, and done it from Newfoundland and Labrador, which anybody who does anything from Newfoundland and Labrador, be it curling or construction, the cost of it is enormous, because getting off the island, as we know, is not the easiest thing to do. Anyway, so where do we sit? So Brad Gougeau has a playoff game this afternoon. He meets Dunstone. So I've been trying to figure out how the curling playoffs work. Again, not as a curling expert, but I found a good explanation. So there's 2 games this afternoon. The winners of this afternoon's game square off Saturday evening in the playoff game that will determine who goes directly to the final, I believe. Then the losers play again on Friday evening against the third seeds for spots in Saturday afternoon's playoff between the third and fourth seeds. That will leave us again down with 2 teams who will play off on Sunday, I believe, if I'm reading it right, for the final on Sunday evening. Anyway, Brad Gougeau at least has a couple of chances, if I'm reading this the right way, to advance to the final or the semifinal, particularly finishing first. There's some advantage in all of that. So we're getting into it. I think Brad's game this afternoon is 1:30, if I heard Sarah Strickland correctly. So let's pay attention to that. Well, I guess I won't be watching it at the Hue and Draw in Corner Brook. I got to say, before we get into the meaty stuff of the show, hearing that story, I feel for the restaurant owners, the car crashing in there. Boy, if you're hoping to have a quiet pint and an easy evening, and you go to the Hue and Draw, you had a bit of a harrowing experience as vehicles were flying fast and furious your way, or a vehicle. More on that in the news if you have no clue what I'm talking about. Speaking of talking, I always find this fascinating. It reflects probably a new realignment of politics in the province, that here we are with the first week of the House of Assembly. Speaker Paul Lane, who I've talked to often on this program and my program, has told effectively his peers to settle down, that he may have to take some measures because the chirping is getting out of hand. Now, look, I have worked for 2 of the greatest political chirpers of all time, the late John Crosby and Doug Young, former federal minister from New Brunswick, who was a business partner of mine. And both of those gentlemen have had legendary chirps that have led to pretty significant headlines and requests for apologies and accusations of sexism and the like. So I've seen the greatest chirpers firsthand, and their intent is more to be funny, but oftentimes it can cross the line. In a different era, we kind of expected. I think the challenge now, particularly for politicians in a male-dominated industry, is, you know what, try and dial it down a little bit. When you have Eddie Joyce, no slouch himself, to the quick wit and the smacking words, saying he's got to listen to his earpiece to hear what's going on. Maybe that tells you not the greatest impression you're making with the broad public when the bigger story coming out of the House of Assembly is the chirps and not what's getting done or not done in there. I get the PCs are the new government. I get the Liberals are the opposition. They're probably not happy with where they are, and the Conservatives are feeling emboldened with where they are, and it leads to what you get. But look, good humor, good razz, good debate is all fine, but if it's all chirp, that isn't so good. So if Paul Lane lays down the hammer, to use the curling parlance, it's probably due. There did seem to be some new debate in the House of Assembly yesterday around the Rothschild report, and I admit I'm not as familiar with it as I would like to be. But Premier Wakeham says former Premier Fury won't give him access to it. Apparently it's an issue of cabinet confidence. The Rothschild report allegedly looks at all the assets Newfoundland and Labrador has. I mean, there may be valid reasons, there may not be valid reasons why it's not being opened up, but, you do wonder if it's a lot to do about nothing. I guess we'll see. There's no House of Assembly sitting today, so we'll learn more over the course of it all. Clearly, the Conservatives sense that by going after the Liberals and them not releasing it, there's something to hide, and that may not be the case at all, but that is the narrative that plays out. Still more discussions about Beta Nord and all that it may mean or not mean. We're going to have people on today to talk about that. Want to get the NDP's perspective. Sheila O'Leary is going to join us at around 9:30, I believe. I've got somebody from Environmental Defense coming on at 10:30, I believe, to speak about the $1 billion payment that's being made by the Government of Canada to help oversee all of the fees that would be incurred for the project or the taxes. So lots and lots and lots of stuff on Beta Nord that we can talk about today. We've been talking about this week hospitals, and in particular frustrations people have had with service and being left in hallways and at St. Clair's, broken windows and being frozen as a consequence of that. Well, it was with some interest I saw this story on CBC Newfoundland, and again, credit to them for telling it. In this case, Abby Cole. The story is about Jamie Miller. And Jamie had been admitted to a Western Memorial Hospital in Corner Brook. She spent 6 days on a hospital stretcher. As she said to Abby Cole in her story, it felt degrading. She was there for diverticulitis. My dad suffered from that. I can tell you it is awful. It is brutal. It got you, pardon the pun. 6 of those days are on the stretcher were spent in a small room with no windows. She, according to the reporting, she said she hardly slept. In order to use the bathroom, she would have to exit the hospital pod with her IV pole. She said she was in excruciating pain. She wasn't able to breathe. She was only offered a shower on her 5th day after asking multiple times. It sounds just absolutely horrific. There's another individual mentioned in the story, Leanne Renouf, who said she had a similar experience, 3 days on a stretcher in the same hospital. Newfoundland and Leanne Renouf talked about the discomfort and the lack of sleep. In this story, Newfoundland and Labrador Health Services acknowledged the overflow issues at Corner Brook's new hospital before. They said while it originally opened with 164 beds in June 2024, an additional 30 long-term beds and 15 transition care beds were opened last fall to address the overflow. In a statement, NLHS said, let me go down to being cared for outside of a traditional room can be distressing. Well, that's really sympathetic. Geez, thanks, NLHS. I don't know if you said more, but that's what's reported. They said they work to minimize these situations as much as possible, but sometimes healthcare facilities can experience high patient volumes. No kidding. And again, I'm not crapping on the people who are on the front lines, the doctors, the nurses, the nurse practitioners, all of the additional support, the technologists, everybody that's there. But can we do better than saying being cared for outside a traditional room can be distressing? Can we express some empathy? You wonder why people get so irritated and angry and why you have to put up those signs in hospitals that say, oh, aggressive behavior won't be tolerated. Well, if you treat them like human beings or have an attitude, I get it. It's all downstream. I get you need more money. But my God, can we talk like human beings? This stuff drives me friggin' batty, and it's not a long drive in my case, as we all know. That was something that caught my attention. You want to talk about that? We will have you on to discuss that or whatever. There's also the story of our friend Diego. Remember Diego? He called earlier in the week. He had a bite at a dog park in St. John's down by Kitty Vitty, and it was a pretty bad bite. The story has gone to the Telegram. He's telling more of his tale. We had some response to that. Diego had alleged that a woman who was the owner of a pit bull wasn't responsible with her dog. We had another caller who said, well, that wasn't entirely the case, that, Diego himself could have maybe done better. But again, two different views of it all. Nonetheless, Diego's the guy who ended up with stitches. It's getting more news. If you got some insight on all of that, give us a call. So that's some of what I'm looking at from the province today. Just let me highlight a few other things we're going to talk about today. Later in the show, I reached out. I'm going to get Dr. Luke Ashworth on to have a chat with us about the Middle East. Look, it is getting more tense by the day. There's a lot happening. I want to know more about it. I hope you do. So we're going to have Luke Ashworth on. We're going to go to Milan. We're going to go to Milan, Italy. We've got the general manager of the Paralympics hockey team there. Of course, our own Liam Hickey is competing. We're going to hear how they're faring and what they're doing. We are also going to hear about a new federal poll. Andrew Enns from Leger is going to join us a little later on. The federal Liberals apparently have the biggest lead they've had in a decade. They are at 49%, I believe, according to the Leger numbers. Andrew will be more precise with us when all of that comes about. So we got lots and lots on the program. And I got it wrong yesterday. Again, shock, oh shock. Today is NHL trade deadline. So you want to weigh in on that, what you'd like to see happening? I know we got Canadians, Bruins, Leafs, and all kinds, Red Wings, fans in our midst. So you want to have a chin wag about all of that, give me a call. But what I'm going to do now, Pam Parsons, you hang tight. I'm going to take my first break, and when we come back, Pam Parsons is on the line. We'll have a chat with her here on Open Line.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Big Land FM radio network.
Welcome back. Tim Powers in here for today. Well, delighted to have Pam Parsons, MHA, Harbour Grace, Portagrave, former journalist, aspiring musician. Pam, before I get into what you want to talk about, I got to ask you, this chirping stuff, how bad is it? Tell us your view on that.
Well, good morning, first of all. Of course, it's a beautiful sunny day here from my beautiful district, Harbour Grace, Portagrave, and, of course, to all your listeners across our great province. But, yes, I was elected first in 2015, and there's a lot of excitement in the House Assembly. There's no doubt about that. There's a lot of passion on all sides. But I think, what we're hearing in the media and what raised on a point of privilege yesterday is accurate. It's become personal. And unfortunately, for a caucus that has just one government, it seems that they're very angry, and their tone are very angry in the House Assembly. And there are some personal slurs that are coming, across the House, as was mentioned, about what people are wearing. There's also some derogatory terms made that would be gender oriented. But that's it. But it's right though. I mean, we teach our children in school the importance, and there's a special emphasis on bullying and harassment. And it's not okay, to do that, to embarrass people, to hurt people. So, again, there is a lot of passion, and I appreciate that. There's heckling on all sides, but I guess obviously we're going to do better, and we have to do better as an entire assembly. And obviously, I think Speaker Paul Lane is going to ensure that happens, because he's also a very passionate member, and as we all know, he stood firm on that yesterday. So we will see what's going to happen going forward.
Hey, just last question on this. So is it, as you point out, you've been there 11 years. Is this the worst you've seen? And not to excuse it at any time, but the way it's being reported, I'm not there, I've not been there, so I've not seen it, but it just seems that it's at an all-time level. And when your colleague Eddie Joyce, who, I got a lot of admiration for Eddie's seen a lot of the House of Assembly, and he's saying he's wearing an earpiece. Is it the worst you've seen?
Well, and I'm on where I'm located. I'm up to the left hand of the leader. So I mean, I think a lot of the particular shouts across that have come from the other side. So I didn't personally hear them, but I do know what is important is this is an angry vibe, and we noticed this during the campaign. And I mean, a lot of misinformation, a lot of dirty low slurs, a lot of dirty memes on social media, which is not okay. But that seems to be, and I mean, this is not a partisan comment, but unfortunately, this is what we're seeing from Ottawa. We're seeing this in the United States, and it seems to be a right-wing conservative type tone. And I mean, that's not acceptable, and I don't think anybody's going to stand for it. And I mean, as we saw, people are going to be vocal about it. And it's just not okay. It's not okay in the past, and it's not okay today. So, and again, when we go in there, every time I stand and I rise on whatever I'm speaking on, whether it's a question, whether it's a member statement, whether it's to legislation, I'm representing my district. I'm representing the thousands of people who elected me to put me there, and even the people who necessarily didn't vote for me. I mean, I'm representing everyone, and I try and keep that in mind as best I can. It's not just about one personality here that's speaking at a time. It's about the entire district. It's about the province, and the people of this province deserve the best representation, and I think everybody's there with that intent, so hopefully that's what we will see going forward.
I would only say you're right. There's a nastier tone in politics generally. A lot of it has come from the U.S., particularly the MAGA crowd, but I will say when it comes to chirping and political back-and-forth brawling, there's a lot of experienced and talented federal liberals in that regard, and a few in Newfoundland and Labrador too. So it's not been the sole preserve of one particular culture, but we do have a more nasty environment. I agree with that. All right, what were you interested in talking about today, Pam?
Well, it was a good first week in the House Assembly. We haven't been in there. It's been a long time. It's almost been a year. So it was certainly good to get back in there. Obviously, my first time in there as opposition on that side of the House. And it is quite different. But again, I'm proud to be there to represent the people of Harbour Grace, Portagrave District. We've got a lot of great work done over the 10 years. And, of course, that work is still continuing, and it will. But I do want to give a shout-out. I did a member statement, actually, to recognize the volunteer firefighters in my district in particular, as well as the search and rescue, for how they had and of course other volunteer firefighters and all firefighters across the province who came together unprecedented those wildfires, and they really stood fast. And I just want to give them a heartfelt thank you again, because we can't thank them enough. They're there 24/7 every day of the year, for the good and the bad, and just they deserve that. So thank you so much. I was proud to deliver that member statement. But also, Tim, as we know, March 8th is International Women's Day.
Yes, that's right.
And and so again, last year we just marked the 100th year anniversary of when women won the right to vote in the then Dominion of Newfoundland. And again, so much more has been done. But again, there's always more to be done, and I mean, and we'll see that. And I also want to give a shout out to Joanne Morrissey. She's taken the time to host a big event, a luncheon, International Women's Day luncheon. Every year she does this up at All Hallows School in North River, and of course this is a regional event, so everybody comes together. The gymnasium is just filled with proud women, community leaders at all municipal levels. So I'm certainly planning to attend that event this coming Sunday. And I just wanted to give her a shout out for that. And again, it's important to mark these milestones, but there's still a long way to go to really achieve gender equity and fairness all around.
Yeah, I want to blend the two things together because, of course, you were the minister for status of women and the like, and I forget the whole title. That's why I said and the like. We're talking about the House of Assembly. Do young women come up to you and say, "What is it like in politics?" Because certainly, look, I mean, in the Trudeau era, there was a big push to make sure there was equality of representation in cabinet and candidates, and we've seen little bits and pieces of that in Newfoundland and Labrador. But I look municipally and I see a lot of emerging young, able female leaders who have put their hat in the political ring. But do your female peers come and ask you about that? What do you tell them?
I love that. And actually, when I do go to schools, and it was just Education and Teacher Appreciation Week, actually just before the House Assembly, so I got an opportunity to get around some of the schools here in my district at Bay Roberts Primary, Holy Redeemer School, etc. And yes, and kids, little girls in particular, they do come up, and they're so young, and it's important to see, that these children, and children of all gender, of course, see themselves represented. On stages like the political House Assembly, but also in professions that are traditionally male-dominated professions. It's important that we have a government, an industry that reflects society, because that's how we inspire our young people. I mean, I can remember when I was growing up, Tim. Now, obviously, I didn't take this path, but when a little kindergarten Pam Parsons wanted to be a police officer, and I commend the hard work that those officers face, because I tell you, I wouldn't want to be going out on the front lines doing what they do. I mean, they're absolutely courageous. But the point is that, it's important for these children, our youth, to see everyone represented, to say, you know what, I can be that. I can do that. And I mean, I am the first woman to represent my district. We've had some great MHAs, all male MHAs over the year from the then district of Portagrave. But now, as we know, it's called Harbour Grace Portagrave, and I am the first female to represent this district in that regard. And I love it. And I mean, it's all about, getting out there with the people and doing what you can. But yes, and it's very humbling to me and very rewarding, when kids come up and they, you can just see the excitement and the appreciation that they have at such a young age. And also, women of all ages are good. And I got to say, on this International Women's, Day weekend, I would like to show a big shout out to all the community leaders, the women in my district. For example, we had the first woman mayor in Spaniards Bay, in Tammy Oliver. We have first woman mayor in Upper Island Cove, in Cindy Dobbin. And, of course, there are a number of councillors who are women, also in the Joint of Council in Conception Bay North. So there's a lot of great, strong women leading the way here, in a lot of our great organizations across this province. So let's keep that going. And, also, Tim, what's important, women have to stick together. They have to support each other because, as we know, yes, we've got our partisan, party lines and whatnot, but women should be supporting women, because again, we are in the minority currently. We still are. We've come a long way, but there's still a long way to go. So, congratulations to all women in the legislature. We've got some pretty strong women now currently serving in the House of Assembly as well as on the federal stage. Minister Joanne Thompson comes to mind. Yvonne Jones is another trailblazer. Judy Foote, you name them. Kathy Dunderdale, our first woman premier. So hats off to everybody.
Lynn Verge as well was leader of the piece. There's a whole long Rita. I remember Rita Pennell when I worked with Crosby and Trapassi was a real powerful leader at a time when one was needed, and she was amazing. All right, Pam, got to leave it there. We will talk music someday because I know you're deep into it, but we'll leave it for now. Thank you. Good to talk to you.
You take good care, Tim, and I look forward to talking to you about some road work priorities too throughout our district. We'll get to that next time.
We'll wait till the snow. We'll wait till the snow gets off the road. All right, Pam. Good to talk to you. That is Pam Parsons. You take care. MHA for my God, Harbour Grace Betaford. My God, let me tell you how I got that all so wrong this morning. Jesus, I'm right off. Here you go. Pam Parsons is the MHA for Harbour Grace Portagrave. I'm getting everything mixed up this morning. All right. International Women's Day. I just want to pick up on a point Pam made about politics of it, too. I fully aspire and agree with the notion that the more diverse Parliament is, the better it can often be. You will have experts who will look at the chirping that's going on now in the House of Assembly and say if there were, different voices from different backgrounds there, you may have less of that. Not always true, but there's a ton of academic research that says all that. And it's fascinating, being International Women's Day this weekend, that we've only ever had one female Canadian Prime Minister, that being Kim Campbell. Some thought Chrystia Freeland may take that on that mantle. Others have seen and thought that people like Christy Clark in BC would be there. Anyway, you want to talk about all of that? You're welcome to do so. Let's take a break, though, now here on Open Line.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Big Land FM radio network.
Hello, everybody. So our question of the day is about this chirping stuff. It says, do you think excessive chirping in the House of Assembly hinders the progress of legislative matters? Now, again, none of these things are scientific, and sometimes people organize pushes to answer a particular question, but this one's fascinating. Don't know how many votes have been tallied. I can't see that here. It could only be 10. It could be 12. But nonetheless, what does it say? 92% think yes, chirping in the House of Assembly is excessive. 8 say no, it isn't. I don't know. Will this take off? Certainly, neither the government nor the opposition want to have to defend this all the time because it takes away from what they're trying to do and it makes them seem not up to the task. And Lord knows they were elected to be up to the task. I was thinking about George Murphy today. Why was I thinking about George Murphy? Because, George, great caller to this program, the person just about everybody in this audience and many other audiences trusted when it came to gas prices. Some of you know the backstory with me and George. We used to be bouncers together at Trapper John's for years. And George, I don't think ever had to physically remove anybody because his charm and size did it all. But why am I thinking about George? Well, according to one of our news stories, the Public Utilities Board, fuel prices are way up in the pub's weekly adjustment. Like many other places across the country, the price of fuels in the province is way up. Gas jumps by over 6.5 cents per liter in all areas. The pub has set the maximum price of diesel to increase by about 6.5 cents in the island and 4 cents, I should say, in Labrador West. The cost of furnace oil is up 5.5 cents per liter. Stove oil in Lab West is up over 3.5 cents. Propane increases by nearly 0.5 cent. It is not cheap to live and drive and work these days. And as I believe some gentleman said to me during the week when we were going through the different issues of the day, that he said, yeah, great, moving to electric vehicles and all of that, but there aren't enough charging stations. Now, the federal government says they're going to address that. Speaking of costs of things, you heard a little bit of this from the stuff Russell and Jerry Lynn were playing. And again, remember, listen to that show. But the finance minister yesterday outside the House of Assembly or inside the House of Assembly, I'm not sure where he was physically located, offered a hint about tax cuts in the upcoming budget. No, it was in the House of Assembly. He was asked by Sarah Studley, who wanted to know what measures the government intends to take in order to make life more affordable. Craig Party wouldn't say what taxes are coming, but the government will live up to its election promises. Well, let us see if that is indeed the case, because that is a challenge every government has, living up to their election promises. Party went on to say one of the pillars in our platform was to make life more affordable, lower taxes in the upcoming budget. The member opposite will see that we will honor our commitment to lowering taxes and making life more affordable. I don't want to use the word stay tuned, but stay tuned. And he just did. Or he did yesterday. What are you hoping for? Look, I mean, it seems like a weird amalgam of things. And again, it's not just the Newfoundland and Labrador government. They're new and they're finding their feet. But going to cut taxes. apparently going to have some directed spending. Yes, to be fair to them, they have made some cuts already. The new hospital that was going to be brought forward, or the healthcare center, the sports dome, or the theater, all of those particular investments are now not going to happen. So there is an example of 3 different cuts that have been brought forward. But you have, the Premier has said there won't be any cuts to the civil service. There's going to be the lowering of taxes. All of that is good news, but over what time period is this going to happen? And, if we keep building debt and deficits and the like, it does leave a burden for the future. Now, of course, we've had Beta Nord announced this week with much promise and much fanfare, and that may drive revenues that will help increase spending and help pay down debt and do the things that are necessary. But we as a province haven't always showed the fiscal discipline necessary, again, regardless of government, that when the cash starts rolling in to manage the debts and the deficits that we need to manage to put us on a better path forward. So we'll watch. I know the opposition will be watching. We'll all be watching. Certainly, it's been a good week for the provincial government. That Beta Nord announcement has gone over very, very well. They've had a lot of people who have been advocating on their behalf in different media channels about the importance of the announcement, and good, that's what they should do. That's what they're all encouraged to do. But what are you thinking about that? Yesterday we had a lot of Beta Nord chatter, and I know there is anger in Marystown about Beta Nord. We had both the Unifor leader, who, while he celebrated the fact that there was an announcement and was happy for the workers that will benefit from it, hoping that there'd be more talk of Marystown. We had the mayor of Marystown, who was extremely critical. You look at our newscast, you will see and hear all of that. He was not very happy with what was happening in as it related to the Beta Nord announcement, because he was upset there was no topsides. And that debate has raged. Different takes on all of that. You did hear earlier, though, with Jerry Lynn and Russell, Captain Chris Drodge, very well respected person in the marine industry from the Marine Institute. I've talked to Captain Drodge at different times. He spoke about the benefit, or he said he saw a benefit, I should say. I don't want to put words in Captain Drodge's mouth, but when Jerry Lynn asked him, did he think what was happening with Bull Arm and the floating dock, did that sound like something that was very positive and would benefit Newfoundland? He said an emphatically yes. So, Chris Drodge is outside the political stream, so that is positive for Newfoundland and Labrador. It doesn't hurt the provincial government. So, but where are you on Beta Nord? We had another lady, Donna, yesterday, who called. Donna made the point that she had heard Trades NL and she had been a member of the union, but her experience, and it was her experience in major projects, wasn't the best. She talked about being red flagged. She used a different term, but basically it implies the same thing, that people wouldn't hire her because she had a mark against her. She talked about different forms of nepotism and favoritism, and that doesn't surprise me. But what do you think? What do you think about that? Are you somebody who's hopeful? We had another gentleman on whose son was going off to British Columbia for a major project to do some work out there, and he was disappointed that the announcement hadn't come earlier. But you're going to get all of those reactions. What was really interesting to me in my chat with Lloyd Parrott, and again, credit to him and Elvis Lovelace, they both came on and expressed their cases. But what Lloyd Parrott, the Minister of Energy and Mines, said to me, and the government House leader, when I asked him, do you think the hype will meet the reality? He pretty boldly said he thinks it will, and that's brave, and we'll wait and see, because we have had lots of hype and mixed reality over the years. We have had mega project after mega project after mega project be announced, and some have come to great fruition, and others less so. I was thinking yesterday, I was driving to pick up my son. Yeah, that may be a shock to many of you that I do think, but I was thinking, what if right now, we had both the Churchill Falls MOU come to fruition, which appears not to be the case, and you've heard the Liberals argue it's a great deal, $1 billion a year going to work. Premier Wakeham has had a very different view, referendum being studied, thinks it's not a great deal. But what if that was happening the same time Beta Nord was happening? One, would we have the capacity? But two, what would it do to our provincial economy? And I've often thought, when it comes to Newfoundland and Labrador, if we had a string of projects humming together, could we finally get the investment and return that we would want? Could we be that Norway, that shining example that we look to often and say, Norway, what a great spot. And look what they've done with their money, and look what they've done when it comes to fiscal discipline. But I don't know. Could we hit it? Ever since I've been a kid growing up in Newfoundland and Labrador, we've always looked for the big hit or the bar down goal. And we've got we've hit the post. Maybe we've tucked a few in on rebounds, but hey, have we lit the lamp so much that people can say that Newfoundland and Labrador has maximized its full potential? Anyway, that was driving to get my son yesterday. There you go. The things you think about in a car after you host Open Line. All right. I'm loving talking. I know it's Friday, but I'd love to hear from you. We've got lots of calls coming up, but we've got some space now. So if you're mad about hospitals, you want to talk about oil, you want to talk about that interesting story involving the former Crown prosecutor, boy, give me a ring. Going to take a break here now on VOCM's Open Line.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Big Land FM radio network.
Got to tell you, I'm having the best conversations with Matt Barron, who's helping me out today in between the breaks. Lots of stuff. I will get Matt on a little later, but we do now have Sheila O'Leary, my mother's MHA, as I like to say, as Sheila represents St. John's East and Kitty Vitty, and Debbie Powers. I think the latter is the harder job, but we'll check on that another day. Sheila, great to have you. I got to ask you first what I asked Pam about the chirping. You're new to the legislature, but you've been in the hothouse of city council before. You're no stranger to being in environments where the political rhetoric and the insults fly. You're, as a new MHA, 4 days into the House, what's your take on all of this?
Good morning. And you know what? I was absolutely dismayed, to be completely honest. 14 years as a municipal leader, 2 terms as a deputy mayor with City of St. John's, and you know what? The decorum, was nowhere near what we see in the House of Assembly. I have to say, that's one thing I will give a shout out to our municipal government at least. What I saw, people couldn't hear. People couldn't hear. Not only is it disrespectful, and does it cease the actual business at hand so that people can't actually have a proper public debate? But here we are, debating the disability advocate legislation coming in. And look, full disclosure, Tim, I have a mild hearing disability. I wear hearing aids, so I have to, as well as with the hearing devices that we have in the chamber there in the House of Assembly, it's unbelievable that you can't hear what is being said. And then, of course, it's not just the chirping. The chirping is one thing because it's so distracting, and it distracts the people that are in the room who can't actually do the business. But what about the public? What ends up happening are the people who are speaking then have to raise their voices louder, so it sounds like you're shouting. So for the public who we're trying to, act on behalf of, it sounds like we're shouting. You can't hear what's happening. You know what? I know that Speaker Paul Lane is going to take hold of this, and I'm very proud of my colleague and leader, Jim Dinn, for bringing this forward. Let's nip this in the bud right at the very beginning because this is ineffectual. Everybody there is to represent people, and you know what? It doesn't make any sense.
Before we go to Beta Nord, because that's what I want to talk to you about, I just want to stay on this for a minute because I think you can give some good perspective on this. Look, you and I are of an age when we grew up and city council went on Rogers. and used to be the best viewing because people did like the rackets, and there was some chirping then between, people like the late Andy Wells, the late Dorothy Wyatt. They saw the personalities. It did get personal from time to time, and it was occasionally sexist in what, as we would describe it now. You and I both know debates changed, and what happened, would John Crosby be an effective public politician today because his humor was an old school call? We can get into all of that, but why isn't that acceptable in this day and age? What worked 30 years ago, just talk a little bit about that, Sheila, because you've worked with that on Equal Voice and other things, just so people understand.
Well, let me just start with Happy International Women's Day.
Yeah.
I just came from the Newfoundland and Labrador Federation of Labor Bread and Roses breakfast. All day long I'm going to be doing functioning that is here to celebrate the long, hard-fought fight for women's rights and gender diverse rights in our community. And, and City Council certainly was one of those places. Now, of course, I wasn't on council when Andy Wells was the mayor.
We were in diapers then, Sheila. We were in diapers then.
Right after he left, to be completely honest. So I had the changing of the guard. And look, we demand, it is the women's movement that is demanding that we have respectful debate in those spaces, whether or not it's in the smallest town chamber, and again, from my experience from municipalities, Newfoundland and Labrador, to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Board, right across the country, no matter if it's small or big or where you sit, you know what? We have to be respectful of each other. We have to be respectful of women and gender diverse people. We have to be respectful of people from all different identities. And yesterday, in particular, when we talk about disabilities, we want to make sure that people can hear their elected leaders out there debating. So, times have changed. And also, Tim, as soon as I was elected, one of the first things, and I will tell the staff here, the clerk staff are phenomenal. We did a massive amount of training, again, on respectful workplace training. And that was one of the first things. And I can guarantee you, I will be calling it out every time that there's something disrespectful, because we were all subjected to that. That is something that is not just, a sideline anymore. It is an absolute, especially in this day and age when everything is so divisive. Right?
And extremely well said. I would just add this about Andy. He was exceptionally good. I love the man. I adore the man. His style was his style, and yes, it ruffled feathers. He did a lot for the province. So I'm not demeaning Andy in any way. I'm just using that as an example. Let's talk to Beta Nord, Sheila. Your take on this week, the announcement, what it means, what's been overlooked. Tell me all of that.
Okay. Well, let's just start with no details, no transparency, no debate. We didn't know anything. The announcement came out of the blue. We weren't invited to the party. I kind of crashed the announcement, and but again, even with the flash in the pan, all of the excitement, there's so much information missing, and there's still, in the conversation in the House of Assembly, we hear the minister talking about possibly. There's no defined moment there with Equinor. There's still nothing absolute in this announcement, and there's so many layers to this that have to be debated and discussed, because here we are going into back in oil. Okay, well, first of all, we were never not out of oil, and secondly, where is the conversation about the transition, the climate action and investment in renewable resources that are going to benefit the people of this province for generations and generations to come, let alone just talking about the quick fix, which is, of course, the next a couple of decades. And if it actually happens, and that's a big if. And so, finally yesterday, the members of the House were invited to a technical briefing. Again, we know how volatile the oil and gas industry can be in terms of markets. We know it's a hot thing right now, of course, because of the geopolitical context that's happening in the world. Donald Trump and Israel and everything that's going on in the world right now in terms of control of oil reserves. Yes, it is hot now, but we've been here before. And, history, are we going to let history repeat itself again? And the other thing, Tim, I want to speak to is that here we are. Look, this has been successive governments that have been ruling this while the oil industry has been happening here in this province. But we have countries like Norway who have invested heavily in themselves. The NDP have been very clear on the fiscal mismanagement of both governments, that have predecessed us. And so what is happening right now is, do we have any plans to invest in things? If this should come to pass, then where are the investments going to go into our society? Because, Tim, my constituent office, since we've been open here since October, we finally got into the House last week. All we hear are from seniors, are from people in the community who cannot afford to pay their power bills. They can't afford to live. They can't afford their medications. There's so many needs in our community right now. So how is the government, first of all, going to make sure that those people are surviving? We can't wait a couple of decades for that. That has to happen now, that investment in our people. But more importantly, if this deal should come, how are they going to invest it back into a climate action plan so that we can have sustainable, renewable resource for generations and generations to come? It should be our legacy.
Yeah, it's interesting on that one, right? Because even in Alberta, Danielle Smith, as part of the deal with the pipeline and recognizing also the demands of other international financial markets, people will say she's not gone as far as she needs to, and that is probably true, but she is moving in that direction, right? Like, oil will last for so long, but climate change isn't getting away from us, and people are probably pulling their hair out as I say this and as you say it, but that's the reality as well, too. So
it is in the background, and you know what? Look, I know that I don't have control in the House. I have a voice, and I have to represent the people who have elected me. And the reality is we have to start planning. We have to start investing and planning for the future of our province. There's no reason, Tim, and you know it, that we should not, with all of the resource that we have in this province, there's no reason in the world that we should not be able to be one of the wealthiest jurisdictions, right, in the country and in the world, honestly, because we are so privileged to be living here with the resource that we have. But again, no planning, no information, no ability to debate. We've got massive debts because of the accumulated mismanagement of government prior to. And you know what? We know that oil is going to eventually disappear. I would say 2050 is what the projections are. So, you know what? Look, there are good things in there, and I don't want to say it's all negative, but the reality is we haven't had an opportunity to even talk about it. So we're just going to forge this through without the discussion. I mean, obviously it's exciting for union workers, for trades workers and things. People are starving for work. They have been for quite some time. But let's remember, we also need to continue the discussion on what's happening with that MOU for Churchill Falls. I mean, is that completely off the table now, now that this new announcement that doesn't really bring any detail is on our plate?
All good questions, Sheila. I got to go to the news, but thank you for being with us. Great to talk to you, and we'll keep asking the questions. We've got other people who have different views coming in.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Big Land FM radio network.
I meant to properly say goodbye to Sheila O'Leary and thank her. I hope you heard that. We had a little bit of what's called a digital blip. Been quite the week for technology. All right, no blip here, but the voice of Danny. Danny, you're on the line. Tell us what you're thinking about Beta Nord.
This is Tim, is it?
It is, Danny.
Yeah. Why are they talking about a floating platform on Bull Arm? I'm very happy to see it go to Bull Arm. But a floating platform, what's it going to do? Build ships or repair them?
I'm not a mariner or a marine engineer, but my understanding from what they've told us, Danny, and it's a great question, it allows you certainly to get into the repair business, so fix them. I think what the government of Newfoundland and Labrador is hoping is that that floating platform, along with other refurbishments they make at Bull Arm, will allow them to be a place where ships go to get repaired. I haven't heard anybody say we're getting into the shipbuilding business, more the repair business.
What are they talking about Marystown? Can we do it at Marystown too?
I'm sure Marystown would argue, and Rick Farrell, who I talked to earlier in the week from Unifor, said they have the capacity to do work down there too. I think, again, I'm just getting up to speed like the rest of the province on this. Not my wheelhouse, but I'm learning on as we go. And I've heard this because I've seen some and talked to some people in the marine industry that we could use both facilities probably because there is a shortage of facilities internationally to repair and fix boats.
How about the St. John's Dockyard?
That one I don't know, but I assume the shortage is such that it could be. But again, the things a lot of things get involved in all of this, price, availability, and the like. But I think I think there's lots of potential there. But I say that not being part of the industry. That is my qualification.
How come we're going with a floating platform? How come we can't build a platform, build it into Bull Arm, and have it all go to Bull Arm too?
Just a guess here, but I'm guessing a floating platform allows you the flexibility to do different types of work that a fixed platform wouldn't. That is my guess, but we will try and find out for you, Danny.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
What do you think of the turnover SPCO? Are they going to keep it going with the SPCO or are they going to build a platform?
That one I don't know the answer to, but if somebody does, they're welcome to call. Sorry, that one I don't know. I'm only up to speed basically on what's been happening now, but we'll ask, and if I can get you an answer, I'll bring it on the air.
Okay.
All right. Good to talk to you, Danny.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What do you think of the project?
Look, I think if it
you think it's going to work for Newfoundland and Labrador?
I hope it does. Like all of these projects, I'm cautiously optimistic because sounds like you and I have lived a life where we've heard a lot of these announcements before, and some of them made a huge difference. The oil industry has made a huge difference in Newfoundland and Labrador. But I just, I think we have to be excited, but also measured in our excitement, knowing what our reality has been. So that's the answer, my friend. I got to take another call. Thank you very much for calling.
Thank you. Take care. Have a good time.
You too, Danny.
Are you in
All right.
St. John's now?
No, I'm not in St. John's now. I'll be there soon. I'm on the mainland at the moment doing this.
Oh, that's okay.
Okay.
Okay. You
have a good day.
Thank you for taking my call.
Good to talk to you, Danny. All right, that's Danny.
Weekend. You
too, buddy. Some good questions about Beta Nord. Mike Keogh. Mike, haven't talked to you in a while. You want to respond to Pam, talk about her comments on the Speaker of the House. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, thank you, Tim. Not as much respond to Pam, but I guess respond to a news story that VOCM has been carrying, and Pam called on that. That's the same thing, I believe, and it's about behavior in the House of Assembly, in the Newfoundland and Labrador House of Assembly. Tim, you're an old dog.
Mike, you're killing me. I might be shot later, but go ahead.
Yeah. No, in terms of understanding politics and how it works or doesn't work. But I over the years, I remember back in the 60s. Okay, I'm not pretty old. I'm old. But I remember being in the 60s and watching this type of behavior, this waste of time, this name-calling, this, complete... I don't know, Tim, try and do that in your workplace and see what happens. Behavior, right? And try... Even the children in school, or are able to be managed. So can you help me understand what is it that permits this really, I don't know, so out of date behavior to occur? Why? Why does this happen?
Yeah, I'll get all academic on you, but you'll know the French academic who talks about how how where you are shapes your behavior. So when you're in the House of Assembly, that all of a sudden you just behave like people have behaved for years and years and years. The problem with all of that is that things have changed over the years. I was saying earlier, Mike, look, I cut my nose in politics, or cut my teeth in politics and my nose, working for John Crosby. Great man. Did incredible work for Newfoundland and Labrador. Love the man to death. Wouldn't have the things I have in my life without him. And John and George Baker and Brian Tobin, all people who've done tremendous things for the province, were able to perform and behave in different ways then. But things have changed, right? It's not acceptable, and we've had two well-spoken female MHAs from different parties say, hey, guys, this is not how we do work in any other place now, so maybe the House of Assembly needs to catch up with the rest of the world.
How, Tim? How does this happen? I with respect, I've heard your comments in different forms for decades. Right? Decades and decades and decades, and people have come on and said, we need to update, we need to act better. But we never do. So what's missing? Why are we today and every other day in this year still doing this? What's not happening?
People are thinking that they're not disciplined enough. Often. This starts with leadership, right? So the leaders of the different parties, the leaders in the House need to say, we're not going to tolerate this. And the leadership, it's not just Paul Lane, have to say, all right, everybody, you get on with this. You're not getting your question. You're not getting your time. It's reflecting poorly on this. It's not helping us. So, the leaders have to put a kibosh on it. Before, that didn't happen because people found it entertaining and performative. I remember, Mike, you'll remember this. I said this to Sheila. I remember my late grandfather, when City Council first got televised, loved watching it for the theatrics, right? For Andy and Dodd and all of the figures going at each other, and people maybe still think that's okay, but it's not. It takes an individual, but it takes leaders to clamp down on it.
They're not doing it, so I don't know how many times. I think I believe, or forgive me if I'm wrong, correct me, but you own your own business, or you run your own business. You run a business, and if you have. If you're trying to get a message out, or trying to, as a government would do, and you had staff or somebody who reports to you behaving like that, then if you want to survive, you would make changes.
Yeah,
but
you have
for
to.
some reason, the premier or whatever body they got to delegate it out to are not. And so, even though we're saying, to Premier Wakeham today and any premiers before him and those to come, where are you? What world are you living in? What alternate universe are you living in that it's okay to be able to spend taxpayers' money getting on with your backbiting, degrading, sometimes dehumanizing behavior? And yet we can't seem to get at them. We go up in the gallery up there, and you change cheeks on your butt, and somebody's going to tap you on the shoulder and tell you to stay still. Right? All right. Yeah.
Well, I think part of it is what we're doing now, Mike, a little bit of public shaming. Like, people need to react and say, all right, because for years I used to hear, and I'm sure you did, oh, this guy's the best chirper in the House. This guy's, and it's usually the guy, this guy's the best to get under people's skin. And in the House, they may see it as fun and, a locker room, but the thing is broadcast publicly. So you always have to remember that, right? Your behavior is being viewed. Kids are watching it. They take it into their own environment. If their elected officials are behaving badly, they're going to say, well, look, Minister X did this and he does it and he writes the check for the schools. Why can't I do it? So, Yeah, a little bit of public shaming is not a bad thing. Can give you about 30 more seconds, Mike, then I got to take a break.
No, that's okay, Tim. I want to thank you. I've enjoyed your time on, and I hope you get back to business a little soon. Thanks very much.
Okay, thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. That is Mike Keogh. Always good to chat with Mike, and he makes a good point. It's up to us, too, to say this isn't the 1980s, and we love the rough and tumble and the punches and the cheap shots, but what does it say to the kids? All right, when we come back, Andrew Enns from Leger Marketing is going to join us. Andrew and Leger put out a new poll that shows the Liberals federally ahead significantly. We'll talk to Andrew about that after the break.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Big Land FM radio network.
Welcome back. Well, we're talking about politics. We've been talking about provincial politics and decorum in the House, which I'm sure Andrew Enns, my next guest, has been getting a kick out of because he knows some characters from my province and the way they often behaved. But Andrew is the Executive Vice President of Leger Marketing. They put out a really interesting poll yesterday, I believe it was, March 5th, that shows the Liberals with at 49% of popular support with a 14-point lead over the Conservatives, who stand at 35. Andrew, that is the biggest lead I gather you guys have noted for the Liberals since 2016.
Liberals haven't been that high since February of 2016. So, kind of the tail end of Justin Trudeau's honeymoon period. Conservatives had an interim leader at the time. So a lot of water has passed under that bridge. And, Liberals are sitting in a very comfortable spot right now today.
I mean, there's a joke there about they haven't been that high. That was after they legalized marijuana too. So maybe that took them right up there. So what do you attribute that to, Andrew? Because there's that, and then you also have the government at I think 61% satisfaction with the public, and that's a pretty good number. So why the gaps? Why the high satisfaction?
Well, look, I think two things are driving that popular vote. One is, as you touched on it, that government satisfaction. Carney's initial days in office, particularly right after the election, were a little bit rocky. He had a government satisfaction down under 50%, but he made some good moves, I think, with his cabinet, and they've kept a steady government. Hasn't been in Canadians' faces with a lot of activist legislation. Has from a government's perspective, what we really see of the government is honestly we see Mark Carney, we see the PM, and that's the second reason I think you're seeing this vote is his personal popularity. He's had some very successful international trips that have garnered some really good attention, but also look like they brought home some tangible benefits for the country. So I think Canadians are going, okay, these things are working out. And I would also say he and the government have made a point of not getting into fights or jurisdictional squabbles with premiers over a bunch of things. So, on a number of factors, like you look at that 49%, they're fairly high in Alberta, Saskatchewan. Places where the Liberals don't tend to be. That's what happens when you don't pick fights with different parts of the country.
Yeah, that's a very good point, the whole Alberta brouhaha, you're from the West, you're a Manitoba boy. I can't think of a time when a Liberal government has gone, in our lifetime anyway, gone so far out of its way to assuage Alberta. Can you? No. I mean, look, They've got a memorandum on a pipeline. We'll see where that goes, but certainly finding ways to just avoid the big showdowns. Premier Moe has been a partner with Prime Minister Carney on both trips recently, China and this latest one to India, and both times he comes back with, I would suggest, pretty good news for his voters. And what's he going to say but good things about the Prime Minister and the government of the day? So for the Conservatives, look, we've heard this from different pollsters. I haven't dove into all your data, but I assume it's similar. Pierre Poilievre, negatives are likely higher than the PM, still having traction with women. Tell us what the picture looks like for Pierre Poilievre.
Well, look, I mean, these are challenging times. The negatives, as you said, we didn't run his numbers in our most recent poll, but we have in the past, and they're unacceptably high in that sense, and that's a big challenge. I think, quite frankly, though, Tim, I mean, I don't know if you agree, but I do see signs that since the Calgary Convention and he got his mandate from the party membership, I mean, he's trying to change his, the tone has changed a bit. A little bit more open to some collaboration with the government. He's on an international trip for the first time to try to, So I think that's all good. I think, however, though, that's going to take a long time, and I think we haven't talked about it, but obviously these kinds of numbers. I mean, you have to wonder whether or not the Liberals feel this might be a good time for a snap election. So probably may not have that much time, but I think he needs time.
Yeah, for him, he certainly does, and I think he was in the place the other day of saying, "Oh, let's wait till Kuzma's ratified," which is a big change
I'd be looking for as much time as you can right now if I were him, because obviously the numbers aren't good, for an immediate election right now. That's for sure.
Listen, before I let you go, those are great numbers for the Liberals, but where are the vulnerabilities, Andrew, that you see in their data?
Well, first of all, I think a lot of this, the last couple of months and seeing some of that rise of Liberal support is driven by the, again, that sort of interesting cohort of older voters, age 55 plus. We saw that they are the most reactionary when it comes to matters of sovereignty in Donald Trump. And what we saw at the beginning of this year was a real flurry of activity around Greenland, and Trump was going to take over Greenland. And I think that reminded a lot of those voters about why they put their faith in Carney as that bulwark against Trump. And so, the 55 plus, like they're astronomical in terms of their support for the Liberal Party and for Mark Carney right now. Does that last forever? I would say the other vulnerability is affordability hasn't gone away. I don't know what the price of gasoline is in St. John's this morning, but I can tell you in Winnipeg it's about 20 cents higher than it was a week ago, and that's going to have an impact on people. And the government hasn't done much about affordability. I mean, they do have their GST promise out there, but I do think that if you're thinking about a snap election, if you're a Liberal, I mean, you do have to be cautious that there's a lot of things in the environment that they don't control that could upend things.
Yeah, and others who have thought it's a great idea have discovered that it isn't. Things change when there's an election. People's focus change. Got to leave it there, Andrew. And by the way, gas is up apparently 4 cents in St. John's today. So there you go. You're getting a raw deal in Winnipeg, buddy.
Tourism brochure.
It'll be there. All right, Andrew Enns from Leger Marketing. Great to talk to Andrew. Okay, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to be joined by somebody from Environmental Defense who offers a perspective on Beta Nord and how the money is being spent, specifically the $1 billion that Canada is going to be spending on Newfoundland and Labrador's behalf, or more specifically, the project proponents' behalf to pay UN Law of the Sea taxes. Back with that in a moment here on Open Line.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Big Land FM radio network.
We continue to dig into the Beta Nord deal and look at different aspects of it. What we do know that the Canadian government has agreed to cover fees for a proposed deepwater project, that being Beta Nord, that would come due under a United Nations convention. And this has drawn the ire of environmental groups who say taxpayers shouldn't be subsidizing oil companies. Federal Fisheries Minister Joanne Thompson confirmed the commitment Tuesday night at the event where the Beta Nord announcement was made. Beta Nord would be Canada's first deepwater oil installation and the first outside the country's exclusive economic zone, a term defined by the United Nations Convention Law of the Sea, or UNCLOS. The question of who would foot the bill for Beta Nord's UNCLOS obligations has dogged the project for years, and Newfoundland and Labrador has maintained that Canada should bear the costs. Canada has confirmed it will bear the cost. To talk to us about why they view this as not the right course of action, delighted to be joined by Ali Hyder Ali, who is an oil and gas expert with Environmental Defense. Ali, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. How about you?
Oh, I'm doing all right. Hopefully no technological glitches. We've had a few of those this week, Ali, but I think we're on the right track now if I've not cursed ourselves. So your colleague Julia was quoted in the story that I just read as saying, look, this is not right. Canada shouldn't be subsidizing to the tune of $1 billion the proponents of this project. Take us through why Environmental Defense and other environmental groups have that view.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is a disappointing decision from the federal government to agree to pay for these royalties for Bay du Nord. As you said, it could cost Canadians up to $1 billion, and it directly benefits a international company like Equinor that is already wealthy, that is already profitable, and it comes at a time where Canadians are struggling with their own cost of living. We are struggling to deal with climate impacts, and subsidizing a oil and gas project like this further intensifies the risks of both of those avenues.
You will appreciate and that in this province we have long had an embrace of the oil industry. It's been very important for our economy. And to date, there hasn't the people who have expressed frustration at the project not heard anybody express frustration about Canada's involvement and paying these particular fees. What would you say to people about why they need to look further at this? Is this other than the money going to Equinor and BP? What is it not being allocated for?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we are subsidizing a oil project, but it is important to understand that every dollar that subsidizes a fossil fuel project is a dollar less that is available to invest in clean, renewable, sustainable projects. So that could look like electrification. That could look like renewable infrastructure that is being developed, wind and solar projects, public transit, making homes more affordable and more energy efficient, all ways that can actually reduce costs of living for Canadians and put Canada closer to being on track on meeting our climate commitments. It should be a win-win to continue to invest in renewable, sustainable projects, and yet we see this federal government once again put a lot of public money into a oil and gas oil project.
There's been a lot of talk about the life cycle of oil. Previously heard 2030. That doesn't appear to be accurate. People saying 2050. We have slowed the march to, I think, diversification of energy sources, alternative energy. You study this. I mean, from your perspective, how long is the life of oil and oil production, particularly in Canada?
Yeah, the expectations, the projections for global oil demand is that it will peak this decade. That has been verified by numerous experts around the world. The date of 2050, that oil will be continuing to increase till 2050, comes from this faulty scenario that the International Energy Agency produced in last year's report, which was only included because of political and financial pressure from the United States, and more specifically from President Trump. But if you look at how the world is moving when it comes to investing in renewables compared to investing in fossil fuels, renewable investment has now doubled fossil fuel investment globally. Countries are shifting their energy production towards more renewables that are cost efficient, energy efficient, and do not produce the same level of emissions that fossil fuels do.
Okay. Ali, appreciate having your voice and your perspective on. We want to make sure our audience hears all views, even those that may be contrary to the mainstream in our province. Thank you for joining us today.
All right, my pleasure. Thanks so much.
Take care. That was Ali Hyder. Ali with Environmental Defense. As you heard, their concern is with the subsidization of major corporations like Equinor and BP, with Canada agreeing to pay the $1 billion that will be required under UNCLOS. You have a thought on that? Give us a call. We have Alicia on the line. Alicia wants to talk about fish processing. Good morning, Alicia.
Good morning, Tim. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. What are your thoughts on fish processing?
Well, first of all, I am a processor out in Stoneville. So I'm calling this morning once again with complete frustration and absolute desperation concerning the future of my, we just have a small family-run plant here in Stoneville.
Okay.
So a bit of background, I guess, for you and for your listeners is we are primarily a sea urchin processing plant, and we have had many toils and hardships over the last few years, and we have seen the need to expand what we're doing to get into other species.
Can I just ask you one question, Alicia? Because so the sea urchin, what do people buy sea urchins for? What is the market for sea urchins?
We sell ready to eat. We process here ready to eat, and we sell directly into Japan.
Got it. Thank you.
So it's So it's like a sushi type. It's very much a delicacy over there.
Okay.
Not much of a local demand, all the same.
Yeah, I was going to say. That doesn't matter. You find the markets where you can. You go ahead, Alicia.
Absolutely. Okay, we have been actively over the winter getting our plant ready for cod processing this upcoming season. Now, obviously, this is a very expensive venture, so we had planned to use our buyer's license to help offset the operational cost. Now, for people who don't know what a buyer's license is, this was a license that allowed processors or fish harvesters to ship unprocessed product off the island anywhere that they choose. So it was a license that was given, I guess not given, to the to us, and we just paid $1,000, and now this gives us the ability to do that. We couldn't process it, but we can ship it away. It makes no sense, but regardless. Anyway, so just to be clear now, I never ever wanted to avail of that. Like I did not build a fish plant so that I'm able to collect product from people and just ship it off the island to be processed somewhere else. But I couldn't get a processing license, so I had to.
You're a business person. You got to adapt.
Absolutely, 100%. So, of course, our plan was we were going to use this buyer's license to help us offset some of the cost with our cod processing. So, on February 17th of this year, the Minister of Fisheries issued a letter revoking all of the buyer's licenses from processors, only processors, not fish harvesters or other people, just only processors. So...
And why was your understanding that they did that? There were too many, or why did they do that?
No, it was, to my understanding, what it is it was some sort of a quarrel or it was a fight, and I don't like to say that either, but it was a debate. It was something to do with the misuse, we'll say, of the buyer's license by plants who had them, who chose not to process. They chose rather than to ship them out. So it was an FFAW type, this crab negotiating thing that I'm sure you must have heard things about that happened very recently. So this was the result of what happened. So he issued a letter, of course, saying that he's going to take back all the buyer's licenses from processors, only processors. So not anyone else, just the processors. So I guess my question is, if my company cannot get a license to process a species here in Newfoundland, why are we also denied the buyer's license that allows others to ship the product out of the province for further processing? What exactly are small processors supposed to do under those conditions?
Especially, I would guess, Alicia, that you would have an argument, too, around the fact that you've been doing this already. I mean, they're effectively taking you out of business. So one would assume there should be some compensatory measure.
Well, yes and no. Technically, I've had a bar's license ever since the bar's licenses became available.
Okay.
I always paid my renewal fee. I had one.
Got it.
But I never used it. I didn't use it because, well, for one, I have to have freezing. I have to be able to, if I'm going to buy this product and just ship it out the island, no processing, I still have to have ice. I have to be able to take care of this product. I am still a processor, but of course I'm still a human being as well. I mean, you had to do these things right if you're going to do them. So I was never really equipped to do that. But this year, I said, okay, well, we're just going to work this into my plan, how we're going to be able to keep ourselves afloat here, and I'm going to use this bar's license to offset some of the costs to help us get, so while I am steadily providing work for my employees that I have with the COD, because I do have that processing license. So I was going to do that, and then I was going to use this bar's license for other species, and that would help me. That was what I was going to do. But I have not yet to this date availed of that because I didn't want to. But this was in my plan now because I've been actively upgrading my facility. I've been putting in the freezers and getting the ice machines and, doing all of these things.
Yeah. So
also, I just want to say that too, with this announcement, I think that the purpose of that, he was basically making changes to the fish processing licenses and the buyer's licensing rules. So one of those changes was to make the application process easier for people. Okay. So whereas before it used to have to go through a board, to my understanding now the board no longer exists when it comes to that. Now it just goes, say, directly to the minister. So, of course, I contacted the department and I said, okay, well, that's okay. You took my bar's license. No big deal. I mean, it is, but not really, because if I can now apply for a species, well, that's what I want to do anyway. That's what I've always wanted to do. Okay. So I asked myself, how can I apply? Because, I mean, this is March. Mm-hmm. We are getting up there right now. Like, we're at the 11th hour again. So how do I apply? Well, my response to that was like, well, the application process hasn't been finalized yet. So,
that's all very
exactly?
That's all very frustrating. Well, if the Fisheries Minister, Mr. O'Driscoll, wants to call, we'll give him a space. Alicia, I got to take a break. Thank you for telling that story. We'll see if we can get you an answer. This is a great place to get answers. And good luck. Appreciate it as a business person, the struggles of trying to keep our businesses going. Thank you for your time today.
Perfect. Thank you, Tim. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Take care. All right. We're going to take a break. And when we come back, somebody else who wants to talk about the decorum in the House, Wilfred, is going to join us. Stand by for that after the break.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Big Land FM radio network.
Welcome back. Let's go to Wilfred, who's kindly been waiting. Wilfred, you want to have a talk about the decorum in the House. What are you thinking?
Well, you got me there now, Tim?
Yeah, I got you, buddy. All good. Thank you.
Okay, you can hear me okay?
I can hear you. The technology is working. Let's hope it stays that way.
Perfect. Okay. First of all, like I say, disappointment, I guess, is a bit of a word, but this has been going on now for some time with the way everybody's been behaving in the House and in other parts of the country, too, in the province and whatnot, in these government officials and electoral officials. And first of all, I was in the military, retired from the military. I'm an ex-bus driver, and I'm in business for 30 years. So we got lots of experience with treating people, and I was a member of our local council. I had 3 terms on local council. And sometimes you want to stand up and say to the guy that just stood up and say, buddy, listen, what are you talking about? You know what I mean? Like sometimes you really, really want to do that, right? But there's a certain protocol in the House, and there's a certain protocol when you're out in public. There's a certain protocol when you're an adult and educated. And our members in that we're voting in right now, they're in there for 4 years. Don't matter what color they are, red, blue, don't matter what they are. They got a job to do there for 4 years. The people that just lost their jobs, they're there as opposition. It don't matter. They're critical now and being bitter and sore about not having a job. And the people that just got voted in, when they don't answer their questions properly and correctly, whether it's right or whether it's true, false, whatever it is, if it's just because they answer it, even if it's something we don't want to hear, you're there for 4 years. You're there. There's no one to get rid of you unless you carry on like you are now. And there's going to be people like me to do everything in this world to make it so that if you guys don't behave yourselves, someone's got to have the authority to say you're fired.
It's really funny you say this about your experience driving a bus, because I had a caller yesterday, and she was talking about her experience at work, and it wasn't so much about the chirping, but it was how the behavior was childish. And she said, you know what, at least on the bus, she was driving 9 and 10-year-olds. I expect that behavior, but I don't expect that behavior from adults. I mean, you run your own business for 30 years. What would happen, Wilfred? What would happen if you talk to, a coworker or an employee that way? What would happen?
Yeah. What would happen? That's right. Exactly. What would happen is, for to start with, you're a bully right off the bat, because you're in a position that you can actually talk down. You can actually talk down to people around you because of the position you're in. So that's one factor right there. So that puts you in a bully category, and that person would leave your business and they'd never come back. So you somewhere along the line, when someone's got a complaint, if they buy something that they don't like, the product is not up to quality or whatever, they come in. It's not your job to challenge them. It's your job to see, what do we do to make you happy? What do we do to make you, that you got to satisfy your product is okay, and things like that. But these members in there, I'll be honest with you, I don't think they're qualified. Some of these that's being voted, I don't think that they're, when they put their name on the ballot list, if I put my name on the ballot list here at the municipal government or whatnot, I mean, people look at that and go, gee whiz, yeah, I think we will. Yeah, we'll accept these nominations. Yeah, sure will. But there is a process for accepting that nomination. And the Premier, when he said yesterday he's going to get to the bottom, well, good for the Premier, but the Leader of the Opposition also should have took the same approach. We will behave ourselves. We will, and I'll hold the people accountable. But it's no good to say that to the media. There's no good to say that to the media. He's got to stand up in the House and say that and look around to every one of his members and say to them, listen, this is the way I want you to behave. If you don't behave like this today, you're not going to be here. Right?
You just nailed it, though. Yeah, sorry, I'm going to politely interrupt you, Wilfred, and say that this is what Mike Keogh and I were talking about, right? The leader sets the tone, whether it's the leader of a team, the leader of a political party, the boss. People will take their lead from a leader, and good to make that point.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to have someone that respect. Obviously, they don't respect their leader, right? That's what I get right out of that, right quick, is that, I'm not going to mention no names because I got respect for the people that we just voted in. I got respect for the members that just got voted out. I'm not going to mention no names because I got too much respect for them. They know what they got to do to make this problem. We're in trouble. We're in trouble. This province is in very, very, very serious trouble. We've got a lot of things on the go. That we got a lot of opportunity, we got a lot of ideas out there, and there's a lot of people working. And just because your buddy across the street mentioned the idea before you did, don't mean to say it's a bad idea. And just because it didn't come up when you were running that business or running that government, doesn't mean it's a bad thing.
Yeah.
I mean, everything is not bad. A lot of it is. But I'm telling you, we got trouble with bullying out there in society right now. I'm not going to say schools. I'm going to say society, and I'm going to tell you, it starts at the top. They're when they get in certain positions to get the opportunity, they really, really, really take advantage of their bullying. And the House Speaker, God love him. But he should, whatever authority they can give that House Speaker to shun this and to shut this down. He needs lots of authority. But I think all the complaints should go back to the leader, to the leader of that party. I think if there's anybody penalized, I think they should go so far as fine them, go so far as like I say, definitely put them on probation.
Yeah, well, that's. I'm sure Paul Lane will crack down. Paul's never had any encumbrance in acting. Wilbert, great call. Thank you for calling us today. I loved a lot of what you said there.
Good enough, boy. All right. But anyway, guys, behave yourselves. Try to be. Don't matter what color you are. Don't matter what color the parties are. We respect you guys, in or out. Yep. Don't matter. Get the job done. Let's do the work. Thank you.
You're great advice that all should be here too. So, just before we go to the news break, the French philosopher I was thinking about, my God, I used to talk about him all the time. There's a guy called Michel Foucault, and he would say, institutions drive behavior. Here's a quote of his, and I'll leave you with this, then we'll head to break as we're talking about decorum in the House of Commons. He said this: people know what they do. Frequently they know what they do. They know why they do what they do. But what they don't know is what they do does. But what they don't know is what they do does. And we're getting a reaction to what they are doing and what it does today. All right. Time for a news break. Back with more after that.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Big Land FM radio network.
Sarah is the deliverer of the cold. Every time I've heard her weather forecast, it's been minus. That's not Sarah's fault. Of course, that's just the cold weather we're getting. Well, it is not, unfortunately, cold in the Middle East. It is very tense. Let me give you a little bit of background to set up the conversation I'm going to have with Dr. Luke Ashworth. This material, so you understand where I sourced it, comes from Time magazine. They write, the latest phase of the Iran war began on February 28, 2026, when the U.S. and Israel launched coordinated attacks, codename Operation Epic Fury, targeting Iranian military sites, nuclear facilities, and leadership compounds, including the residence of Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who was killed in the attack. The strikes reportedly killed over 1,000 people, including civilian school children, and created a power vacuum in Tehran. Iran responded with missile and drone attacks on Israel, U.S. bases, and Gulf countries, including Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Kuwait, Qatar, and Bahrain. The conflict has also spread to Lebanon, with Israeli strikes targeting Hezbollah in retaliation for Iranian-backed attacks. Drones have also been shot down by Turkey and Azerbaijan. The government of Canada initially very strongly supported the U.S. attacks. That position evolved into, yes, the attacks are right, there needs to be a diplomatic solution. Yesterday, the Prime Minister, when asked if there could be some Canadian involvement, he had previously said no, but said depending how things play out, there could potentially be Canadian involvement. There's a special Liberal caucus meeting in Ottawa today to deal with all of this. To help unpack this simple thing, joined by our friend Dr. Luke Ashworth. Luke is a professor of international relations at Memorial University. Luke, I think we've been looking at this conflict. The Newfoundland Perspective is the story about oil, and the opportunity that it provides. If it were only that simple. We're a week into this now, almost a week into this. It would be a week tomorrow. How concerned ought we to be about what appears to be great instability in the Middle East?
Well, yeah, I mean, deeply concerned. This is a conflict in an area that, as you've already discussed, is vital to the global economy, and it's not just questions around oil; it's questions around fertilizer and food prices. So that's an issue there. But also, it's an area, a region that's, of course, very volatile. We've just come out of a conflict. But as Israel strikes out, particularly Israel was struck by Hezbollah, so now we've got the war back again in South Lebanon. We've got 500,000 people being told to leave their houses in South Beirut. That's the whole population of the province. And we've got constriction on aid going into Gaza, issues around Gaza kind of flaring up. We've got other countries, including Azerbaijan, now being dragged in. This is intensely destabilizing from a global point of view.
And we now have the President of the United States, I guess, this morning saying that there will be no deal with Iran until there's unconditional surrender. That language is not surprising. The concern that's being raised about the United States is what the end game is. This originally started when the president announced the attacks, be a matter of days, and then it became weeks, and now it seems to be drifting. What kind of sense do you have about what the American end game to bring about resolution may be here, and what may happen in between that and getting to that place?
Yeah, well, what worries me there is that there isn't one. And, this is something that makes this very different, say, from comparative cases. There are other differences, too. You think about the NATO bombing of Libya, the targeted bombing in Syria, too, is that there was a clear end game. There was a clear message from the administration and from U.S. government. And also there were clear forces on the ground that this was kind of interacting with. It allowed there to be a kind of a plan, even though in cases like Iraq, of course, the plan goes haywire very, very quickly. But the problem we have here is it's the classic chaos that we've come to associate with the Trump administration. We have, 3 or 4 different people from the administration saying that 3 or 4 different goals with 3 or 4 different timelines. When the United States doesn't have a clear laid out goal, different people have been saying different things. And, not even sure whether or not when Trump says we're looking for unconditional surrender, whether that's actually true or not.
Indeed. As it relates to Canada, probably this has been a more difficult period for the Prime Minister in terms of the criticism he's getting at home. While I think there's a large majority of Canadians who acknowledge that Iran is not a nation you want to possess nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles because of the threat they pose. I think most people probably agree with that. Most people probably agree action was necessary. But for the Prime Minister, he first firmly backed the President, then tried to correct it a little bit, saying, yeah, but international law needs to be adhered to. Then yesterday, I believe it was yesterday in Australia or Japan, where he is now, talked about, well, maybe we could end up having a role there. I mean, how difficult is this for a Canadian Prime Minister to navigate, given our own domestic political currents?
Yeah, and this is, in that sense, this is the completely opposite over the crisis over Greenland, and here we have kind of divisions showing up in that sort of middle power alliance that Carney and others were kind of constructing. Carney's Davos speech is a good example of this. We now have a situation where there's a real spectrum of thought on this from the Spanish Prime Minister, who has been deeply critical of the American-Israeli actions, all the way to much more supportive comments from Carney. It is interesting. Again, the British are kind of falling in the middle, but there was an interesting comment from British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, which does sum up some of the problems here when we're talking about achieving objectives in Iran. He said that you can't change regimes from the skies. So a lot is missing if you're looking here, for example, for regime change or kind of stopping the nuclear program, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
So look, the broad audience that you're talking to today, we're watching this, we're trying to understand this and the implications in our lives. What should we be watching and listening for over the next number of days as this conflict, this war, has the potential either to spiral out or maybe get hemmed in?
Sudden changes in American policy might be something to look out for, how committed they are. And, this is kind of a black box. We're not really sure or what's going on here. In terms of things, I know you've been talking about it earlier on issues around oil, is on the one hand, oil prices are going up, and, this is 40% of the world's oil coming through here. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it's worth remembering that a lot of this is likely speculation that's going on. And in fact, the head of the International Energy Agency has actually pointed out that we actually have large supplies of oil. There's a large backlog of oil that is available. So, there is no one simple story about the price of oil. This could go up. It could also go dramatically down, depending on what happens. But I think the big worry here about the closing of the Straits of Hormuz that could put prices up of food is fertilizer. And fertilizer has been mentioned often, but this could be linked to volatility in oil. We could be looking at a return of the cost of living crisis.
Yeah, and nobody wants that. Dr. Luke Ashworth, thank you for your time, sir. It is a complicated piece of the world, 2,000 years of complicated history, and we're trying to understand it in real time. Appreciate your insight.
No problem at all.
Thank you. That is Dr. Luke Ashworth, Memorial University. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, talk about something positive. The 50th anniversary of the Mount Pearl Men's Recreational Hockey League. Back with Tim Ford on that in a moment.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Big Land FM radio network.
Yes, Beth, get your eyes checked. Boy, that's the smart thing to do. If you can get a chance to get that done, you always want to see what you're seeing and make sure you're seeing clearly, because if you're not seeing clearly, it's all a blur, and nobody wants their life lived in a blur. How's that for you? Certainly not a blur, although it may be afterwards when they have a bit of fun. The Mount Pearl Men's Recreational Hockey League is celebrating its 50th anniversary. To talk to us about that is Tim Ford. Tim, how are you?
Good day. How are you?
I am great. 50 years. That's pretty impressive for anything these days. Tell us about the anniversary, a little bit of the history of the league. What can you share?
Oh, it's an incredible league. I think this is my 20th year. I keep saying this is my 20th year. I've been saying that for the last couple of years. But,
for the last 50 years, you've been saying it's your 20th year?
Well, once you get so old, you just everything blends, right? So, you know what? This league started back in the 70s. It was just kind of dreamt up by a couple of players. It's okay to mention names, I guess.
Oh, God, please.
Mr. Tom Vardy and Mr. Dave Shepard. I guess they're the front runners, the forefathers of this league. As you know, the old tin can is where it started back there in Mount Pearl.
I've played there. That's some spot. Anyway, keep going.
So yeah, it just grew. You know, it took on some sponsorships over the years. And some have changed, obviously, over the years as things, grow and develop and all that. And it moved from, I think 4 teams into 6 teams, and now it's currently an 8-team league, fully sponsored. I certainly throw out some of the sponsors.
Do it.
I will, yeah. So our major sponsor is Molson's, and they have been absolutely incredible. They have sponsored this league for decades. The people that we get to work with through Molson's and through our executive, probably, I've been around sports for many, many years, and I would have to say that this relationship with Molson's is by far the best I've seen in all the sports that I've been involved with. So we're quite thankful, very thankful. Some of our sponsors for the league, we have Nutrilon. They've been there for a few years. City Tire and Auto in Mount Pearl. Precision Excavation, which happens to be the team I play on this year. All-Star Rebar has been there for a long, long time. Carpet Factory has a wonderful rep there, and they've been a wonderful sponsor as well. DBA Consulting, great team, great bunch of guys, consulting engineering. Pinnacle Office is there. I played on that team a couple of times. What a great sponsor they are. And North Atlantic has been around for quite a number of years as well. And I know that the owner there and an incredible guy, and not a bad hockey player, I must say. He's pretty good. He's not bad. I'll give him the props for that.
Well, you give him the props on the VO. Now he may not be able to get into the store after this. Now, I cut a few things from what you said. 8 teams. So what do you run? 12 on a team? How many players is that roughly, Tim?
We used to have, I think we used to have 13, but I think what we run now is 12. Yeah, so we have basically 4D and 2 sets of forwards and a goaltender, 6, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, so we'll probably have the extra forward or something like that. So we usually run with 12 with the goalie.
So 96, 97 people playing. That is great. And are you guys, you get the late night shift? Are you guys the 9, 10 o'clock? And then you might have those Molson products?
We run two rinks every Tuesday. On one rink we run 8:30 and 9:40, and the other rink we run at 9 o'clock and 10:10.
Okay, not too bad.
Not everybody likes a cold beer after. Some guys put one in their bag and take it home. The league is 37 years of age and older, and we have guys that are late 30s, and we have guys that are in their late 60s into their early 70s.
It's just. Can I ask you this? Because I have a bunch of buddies who play in a couple of these leagues, and what they still love, and this is, and you're a sports person, so you would get this, is also it's the exercise, but it's the camaraderie, it's the connection to the sport, it's the ability to play. Just tell us about how important that is from your perspective and the guys you play with.
So, with this particular league, every year you go into a draft, and you can end up on any of the teams.
Okay.
Based on your ranking, right? So everybody is. I'm a very, very highly skilled, low quality D4. So, but you are ranked. You're ranked from 1 to 8 or 9 for forwards and 1 to 4 for your D. But you can end up once the draft happens, you can end up in any team, and it really doesn't matter because you're playing with guys you played with before or never before. So. But the consistency of this is, I think it's the conversations, the camaraderie. In this world, I think with mental health issues and everything, men don't talk and all that. You get a night to sit back and with your peers and you talk about things that are not important, some things that are important. You laugh, you release tension off your workday, and you come home better, you come home stronger, you come home healthier usually, unless you get injured a couple of times like I have. But it's just such a great league for what we support, what we do on the outside with fundraising and all that. It's probably the best men's club you could ever be involved with. And I can't speak enough about it. It has changed my life, and that's no joke. That's no joke.
No, and I hear you. I played old-timers rugby, coach hockey. Just being in the environment is all very good. Look, before I let you go, Tim, anything special planned for the 50th anniversary? Yes, actually, that's the most important part right now is we have our 50th anniversary dinner and dance on March 28th. At the Reed Center in Mount Pearl. This is open for all past and current players. So if you have played in this league, we want you to reach out and chat with us and see about getting some tickets. We have Bic and the Ballpoints playing, which we are really excited about. The tables, we'll have all of our sponsored tables there. We're going to have some representation from the city with our mayor, Dave Aker, is going to be there, and hopefully most, if not all, of our councilors will be there. We have invitations sent to MHA Paul Lane and Lucy Stoyles, and they both are excited about being there, so I'm hoping that continues with everybody's schedule. And, so on top of that, we're going to have some retired players who have helped develop the league back in the 70s and 80s. Going to talk about the history of the league. We're going to be talking about some of the past presidents and some of the past members, our sponsors, and the referees are important too. We have our referees, which we're going to represent. We want them represented there, and we have some incredible awards being handed out, like the Bruce Newhook Award, the Clayton Jacobs Award, Goalie Award, Sportsman Awards, and all that. So, it's an incredible league. I ask people who have been around, or maybe your fathers or your grandfathers
If you're connected to the league in any way, please reach out to us. We want to hear from everybody. And we want that connection with our communities, and we want that connection with our past. So that's where we're to with it right now.
Well, Tim, your perfect setup. It's a great story because coming up next from Milan, we have the general manager of our para-hockey team. He's going to tell us how preparation is going. You guys have a roaring success with the 50th anniversary, and keep playing as long as you can. It makes such a huge difference. Great to talk to you, Tim.
You take care of yourself, and again, you've got my phone number there, and you've got, I think, I can certainly leave some contact information with your guys as well if someone calls in.
All right. Great to talk to you. Congratulations.
Okay,
it's the Mount Pearl Men's Recreational Hockey League 50-year anniversary. All right, we're going to take a break, and then we're going to go to Milan. Adam Jansen, who is the general manager of our Paralympic hockey team, is going to join us. The puck drops tomorrow. We'll hear how it is going, and we want to shine a spotlight on the Paralympics. And, of course, we have our own Liam Hickey on that team. We'll talk to Adam about all of that in a minute here on VOCM.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Bigland FM radio network.
All right, we've kept this man waiting long enough. He's a busy man. He's in Milan. Delighted to have him. That is Adam Jansen. Adam is the general manager of the Canadian Para Ice Hockey Team. Adam, how is it going? Is there a buzz in Milan around the Paralympics as there was around the Olympic Games?
Hey guys, thanks for having me on. Yeah, it's starting to get a little more energy here. We've been here already a couple weeks, but the games start tomorrow, and the opening ceremonies are tonight. So there's a little bit of buzz around the village, and the rink is a little bit busier every day. And I think the guys are they're keen to get going. It's been a long time since they played a game, so yeah, there's a good energy about it.
Yeah, and look, you're talking to Newfoundland and Labrador. We know this team well, of course, because of Liam, and Liam is part of that team. Tyler McGregor, other key players. How's the team looking heading into this competition? Because if I understand it correctly, Adam, we have never won an Olympic gold. We've got some silvers and a bronze, but how's the team looking? Go ahead.
Yeah, we haven't won since 2006, which is the only gold medal that we have.
Okay.
So it's been a long while. The team is looking good. The guys that you referenced there, Liam and Tyler specifically, are some of the leaders in the group, and we've got a pretty experienced team. Guys that have been this is their third or fourth games, and I think there's a good sense of belief here that in the team that they can win the gold medal. Obviously, every team thinks that, but I'm really confident in the group that we have and the experience that those guys have.
Now, Adam, I understand rivalries are very similar to the Olympics. Czechia, pain, been a real pain to our Canadian junior team. They are not to be overlooked. The U.S. and China as well. Is that right? Tell us about who some of the rivals are for our para ice team.
Yeah, so for us, the main rival are the Americans, but the Czechs and the Chinese would round out the top four teams in this sport. I know China is a bit unorthodox for hockey, but they do invest a fair bit into Paralympic sport, and they held the games last. So those are the top four teams, and I would say like you said, there's always a battle when we play the Czechs at any level, and it's no different here. And there's always a battle with the Americans. Over the last little bit, I'd say we've been second fiddle a few too many times, and I think that for sure is a motivating factor for the guys.
And how does it work? Is it similar to what we saw in the Olympic Games, round robin, then basically knockout games after that? Is that the same approach here?
It's very similar. There's two groups of four here, and so we've got Slovakia, Japan, and the Czechs in our group. The Americans, Chinese, Germans, and Italians are in the other group. The top two teams in each group go to the semifinals and cross over, so one plays two in the other group and vice versa. And the teams that finish third and fourth in the group, they play in the kind of crossover matches. So there are no quarterfinals. You need to finish in the top two in your group and go to the semis.
And go right to the semis. So first game is opening ceremonies today. First game is tomorrow. against Slovakia, and then gold medals and playoffs are when? Next week?
Yeah, the semifinals are the 13th, and the medal games are the 15th.
Okay. Now I've heard I heard Tyler interviewed yesterday by CTV, and he was making the point too that the St. Julian Arena is actually looking pretty good. There was lots of concerns about that, and it's modified for the para athletes. Tell us a little bit about that, because people are probably curious. How do you do the shift changes and the like? How does all that work, Adam?
Yeah, so first of all, the arena looks great. Like I think there was a lot of concern coming in, but it looks really good. Some of the modifications for paras, the penalty box and the benches, the boards are plexiglass, so the players that are sitting in the sleds can see through. Okay. And the bench is actually ice. So usually it would be a puck board or like synthetic ice, but here it is like an extension of the rink. So the players they come through one door, and line changes work the same as they would in stand-up hockey, except the players aren't going over the boards, they're always going through the doors. But it's change on the fly, there's no stoppage, and you can get dinged for too many men.
Really? Okay. The other thing that Tyler talked about, which I found interesting, because the visuals at the Olympics were, of course, you had to come from another facility across and onto the ice. How does that work with some of the para athletes and moving from changing room to the ice, if there are still encumbrances there?
Yeah, it is the same. They need to go a decent way to the game day dressing room, but there are golf carts to bring guys that either have a prosthetic or one leg or in wheelchairs. So the golf carts would bring them to the game day rooms, and then they'd get in their sleds and be good to go.
God bless these players. I mean, just before I let you go, two last questions. You talk about the amount of games. This is what I don't think people appreciate. As para-athletes, as para-hockey players, they don't get near the amount of competition, correct, that able-bodied athletes get. So tell us about, the prep heading into these games.
Yeah, correct. We don't get a ton. They play 2 tournaments in the year, and then typically we do a series with the USA, a home and away series, but we didn't do that this year because of the timing. So we essentially got the guys together every month for a week to 2 weeks, starting in the end of August. And we'd have camps split by these tournaments. One was overseas in Czechia, one we held at home in Dawson Creek. And then we've been together, they're together 2.5 weeks in January. They got a couple weeks at home. And then we've been together since February 7th. So we split that time between Toronto, a pre-camp here in Italy, and now in Milan.
And for those of us at home who want to watch, CBC has the full streaming service for all your games, TSN carrying it. But how can we watch and cheer you guys on?
Yeah, it's on CBC Gem, and so it's available on the app and also broadcast on TV on CBC.
Adam, thank you very much. Appreciate the time. Best of luck to you guys over there. Please tell Liam that all of Newfoundland and Labrador is cheering for him and all of his teammates. Go Canada, go. Thank you for the time today.
Thank you so much. Will do, and really appreciate the support.
All right, good job. That is Adam Jansen. He is the general manager of Team Canada at the Paralympics. Here is what we're going to do, Allison. We're going to take a break now. If you hang tight, we'll come back and talk to you right after the break here on VOCM's Open Line.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Big Land FM radio network.
Welcome back. Last quarter hour of the show. Let's go to Allison, who's kindly standing by. Allison, what's on your mind today?
Oh, I got lots on my mind, but my biggest question is, I know, if you were an employer and you were hiring and you got a choice between hiring someone at 100% wage or 20% wage, who would you hire?
Well, I am an employer, and if it would depend on the talent of the individual. I would actually pay for talent. So I'm a bit different that way. If I was getting somebody I could bring on who I knew would be a great investment for the company and I had to pay full freight, I would pay full freight. You didn't expect that answer, did you, Allison? But maybe I'm dumb as a business person.
Actually, I'm glad I got that answer. No, but today, the way things are going today for Canadians, especially for Newfoundlanders these days, that basically with the government wage that they have out, which is lasts for 2 years, that they will pay 80% of the wage for the refugees, which I'm glad we're able to take them in. I'm glad that some are safe. I'm glad they're here. But the thing is, we don't stand a chance no more, because if we go try to apply for a job, it is 10 times more nerve-wracking, because, I mean, I've applied. If I didn't get the job that I've got 5 years ago, I'd probably be one of the people living in Tent City right now. And
So give me an example, though. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I would like an example of where you're seeing this happen, like an industry. You don't have to name a specific company, but an industry where you're seeing favoritism or government programs that allow what you're describing to happen. Where are you seeing this happen, Allison?
Well, I know one place that is in over towards CBS, Paradise that way. They had an interview, had 12 refugees come in. And after that interview was over, 10 Newfoundland employees were called into their office and fired. Their 3-month probation, they had less than a week left to go. They don't need an explanation to fire them. All 10 were fired on the spot.
Yeah, if there's probation, that can happen. But what? And again, I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm just trying to get it to the facts. Because. Again, depending how you define the refugees, they have to have certain requirements to be able to work. I mean, there's been, and you would know this, you paid a lot of attention to it, obviously, a lot of the complaints people have had about the temporary foreign workers program is something like this, that you can get a more cost-effective labor, people opt for it. But do you have any idea why the refugees were, as you described them, were given the employment?
Government grant.
Well, what was the government grant?
100% wage. The government pays 80% of their wage. The employer only has to pay 20%, and that's for 2 years. And I got told last night while I was working that of a company, they hired on 3 people with no experience. Don't care if they work a full day or a half day. They only got to pay 20% of their wage. That's money they get to save. So a lot of people are hiring on people that are less qualified than the ones that are qualified. And I know of someone who was highly qualified for a job and went in for a job interview and is terrified I can't use words, but terrified because basically she knows right now that she's not getting that job because they can hire somebody at 20% instead of having to pay her 100%.
And what is this? What is this? Is this in this company you're talking about? Is it in a service industry? Because there are different requirements for different industries.
Petroleum.
Petroleum, okay. And the jobs were doing what that people were looking at? Do you know? Office work, okay.
Office work.
Okay. Yeah, I can't say that I know what this program is, but I'll look into it. I know there are different hiring programs. Go ahead.
There's a new government grant that came out the moment that we started bringing in refugees to help them get places, jobs, help them out. That's great. I love it. I'm glad that they're getting the help they need. I'm glad that they're where they need to be instead of where they were. They're better off here than where they were. But the thing is, Canada, the government, I can't say Canada itself, but the government is not looking out for their own people. Because today, I can guarantee you, there's a lot of businesses you go into, you're going to see more refugees than you will see Canadians. And right now, I look at Tent City here in Newfoundland, and it breaks my heart because there's more people down there living in tents and cardboard boxes because they can't get a job. Because who's going to pay you 100% when they can save that 80% for 2 years?
Yeah,
I've done plenty of job interviews. And I don't get called in, but I find out later that a refugee got my job instead of me, and I'm qualified for the job.
I would only say this, and to right to raise the question, dig in to get more of the facts that are there. When you say the government, you assume you mean the government of Canada in this case?
Yes.
Okay, and do you know the name of the specific program?
No, I'm not. I wish I did. I wish I would have done that. I was a little bit nervous this morning trying to do all this, but I wish I would have. But the grant is there. It's put out. It's a 2-year grant to basically help everybody else out. But, I mean, it's not helping Canadians. Canadians are the ones that are suffering the most because we can't get the jobs. I know several people that applied for jobs, and I know one person, because of his name, he doesn't sound like he's a Canadian. He sounds like he's a foreigner. He gets the job offer, he gets to go to the interview, and then boom, as soon as they see who he is, he's out the door. He can go back the next day, and then there's somebody else there, and it ain't a Newfoundlander.
Well, if there, again, I will look into all of this. I appreciate you raising it. And I get the frustration if people are getting preferential treatment, as you say they are, because of a certain, of federal programs. Then I get why people would be angry about that. All right, you did. If it was your first call, you did great. Thank you, Allison.
Thank you. But
Good
I can
to talk.
promise you this much: you go into a lot of businesses, you're not going to see very many Newfoundlanders working. There's only certain businesses that are allowing locals to work because they know locals will do the job.
All right. Well, I will look into it. Thank you, Allison. Good to talk to you.
You're welcome. Bye.
Have a good day. Bye. Look, let me just say this. Allison, totally entitled to her perspective. She's telling us about her lived experience. I can't comment on that program. I know nothing about it. I will look into it. I just would caution that these things are sometimes more complicated than the information we have or we think we're getting presents to us. Look, I can tell you from public opinion polling and data that what Allison's talking about, where the sense that people who are new to the country are being favored over people who are here. We saw that in the temporary foreign workers debate and the temporary foreign work programs, whereas there's lots of other data that says certain people don't want to take those jobs who have been long residents of certain areas. So let's always just be careful when we get into these debates about understanding the full spectrum, but I welcome Alice's opinion, and I welcome everybody's opinion. Now I want to get Matt on. Matt has been co-piloting the ship today, doing a great job at it. Now, I only learned, thank you. I only learned earlier that Matt has had a lot of previous experience with open line. So I said, you know what? It's Friday. We got about 4.5 minutes to go. Matt, what is your best open line story?
Okay, so I have so many. I think the first show I ever produced was like 2008, but in 2009, I can't remember the exact topic about it, but picture this. The old VOCM studio had burlap walls, old CRT TVs with the eye in the sky, and there was...
It hasn't really changed, public. It hasn't really... Anyway, go ahead, Matt.
Hey, we got newer carpets in here now. But, there was a big phone board that would light up, and there was a private line that only a handful of people knew. Rest in peace, John Murphy. He used to call that one a lot. But Danny Williams had that private line.
Oh,
and
my.
I'll never forget one day it rang, and it was like a very loud ringing, and it scared you. It'll put you right in place. And it was during a time when, I believe Randy was doing the show, and I picked up the phone, and all he said was, "Hey, it's Danny. Put me on." I was like, okay, sir. And I locked him in, and I put him on, and it was probably an explosive call on the air, but it was one of those moments where I when I think of open line, I think of that private line ringing, I think of Danny Williams calling in.
Yeah, and in that time in history, Premier Williams and Randy Sims, who hosted the show, had some epic debates, and that's the power of this program, and was the power of the program then, that people wanted to get heard. They called, they got on, they had a discussion, and that's what we try and cultivate here. I was just going to ask you, Matt, what is the most difficult caller you've ever had to deal with on open line?
I've had a lot of emotional calls and things like that, because I'm a bit of a softie when it comes to a lot of issues. So if anybody cries on the line, I almost feel like I'm going to start crying. I don't really remember one in particular, but I just, the emotional calls really get me. And, if I was in your position taking any of these calls, I might actually tear up on the air. That's it's not a situation you want to get into. But, those ones are crazy. I used to talk to the Moon Man a lot.
Oh, the Moon Man! There is an epic character
Rest
from
in peace. Rest in peace.
Yeah.
But, a lot of crazy stuff over the years.
Well, and we're here for the crazy. We're here for the normal. We're here for whatever you want. Matt, thank you for everything today. I really appreciate it. All right, we're getting that. That is our show for today. Listen, thank you for tuning in this week. It's been great fun to be back here doing the show for a week. It's such an important program. So many key issues we've talked about this week, from Beta Nord to the state of hospital care to the fishery. To the challenges people are having with affordability. That's what Open Line is all about. I've been lucky this week to work with Matt and Beth and Greg and Jason and all of the VOCM team. I'll be back on my normal program on Monday from 4 to 5 p.m. Big shout out to Greg for sitting in there and doing a wonderful job. Claudette, enjoy the last days of peace. You deserve them, because we'll be back at it on Monday, bringing you whatever we can bring you to inform you as best we can about what's going on. And I'll just say this. For me, it is always an honor and a privilege to sit in here, because this is the program that matters so much to so many of you in Newfoundland and Labrador. Go, Brad, go. Win that Brier. Bring it home. Become the all-time record holder for Brier Championships. For now, I'm Tim Powers. That's Open Line. Thanks very much.